Hey guys, I hope all of you are doing well. So I welcome you all to yet another video in this AWS Data Engineering Certification course, and in this particular video we are going to see how we can launch an SQL server, Microsoft SQL Server database instance inside our RDS instance. Okay, as I would say as an RDS instance. So in the previous videos, we have already seen that how we will be able to launch the MariaDB database engine as the RDS instance and we are already aware about this fact that RDS itself supports multiple database engines like MariaDB, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, right? Oracle DB and much more. So in this video, we are going to see about the Microsoft SQL Server. So with that said, let's get started with this video and let's get straight into the system. So we will go to the documentation that we were referring earlier itself, right? And we have already covered that how we will be launching basically an EC2 instance first of all, right? And inside that particular EC2 instance, or I would say later on, we will be using a VPC, and inside that VPC, we will be keeping our EC2 instance as well as our database instance, but both of them will be inside the same VPC, as well as the DB instance will be in a private subnet, and the EC2 instance will be in a public subnet. And because the database instance is in private subnet, we will only be able to connect to that particular database instance using the S3. And we were using SSH connections, that is uh, secure shell connection to connect to the EC2 instance, right? So if you have already watched the previous video, I hope this particular video you guys will find a bit I can say similar or a bit easy as compared to the last one if you are doing it for the very first time. If you haven't watched that particular video, don't worry, I would say you can continue watching this particular video so that you will get the understanding of the things that we will be doing. So what I will do is I will try to open the documentation in a new tab, right? And here what we will be doing, we will be creating and connecting a Microsoft SQL Server database instance. So in this tutorial creates an EC2 instance and an RDS for Microsoft SQL Server database instance. The tutorial shows you how to access the DB instance from the EC2 instance using the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio client. As a best practice, this tutorial creates a private database instance in a virtual private cloud, that is a VPC. In most cases, other resources in the same VPC such as EC2 instance can access the database instance, but the resources outside of the VPC cannot access it, right? So if I talk about, so this exact thing it's talking about here, that what we will do is we will launch two things. So if I say RDS, or maybe let's not do RDS, let's use a database itself. Okay, and this database will be MS SQL DB instance, right? This will be an MS SQL DB instance. We will have a VPC here, right? So let's say this is my VPC, right? And inside this VPC itself, I will be launching my EC2 instance. Okay, I will be launching my EC2 instance. So what I will do next is, if I am a user, if I am a user here, okay, and now I directly want to connect, and again, this will be, right, this whole thing will be inside a private subnet right? And this will be inside a public subnet. EC2 instance will be in a public subnet. Okay. Now let's suppose as a user, I directly want to access the database instance. In this particular case, something like this, right? So this will not be allowed. Not allowed. Even though I will have the endpoint of this particular database, I will not be able to directly access it, okay, using maybe some kind of SSH or something. Okay, why? Because this private subnet will block it. This particular thing, private subnet, it will block it. Okay, so instead of this, right, instead of this, what I will do as a user is, I will first of all try to connect with the EC2 instance using some kind of SSH, right? And via this particular EC2 instance, I will try to connect with the database instance, and whatever commands I will fire on my EC2 instance, right? Using once I have connected using SSH. Okay, so this is allowed. Maybe you can say via SSH. Okay, so this is allowed, right? This is a green thing, right? And I will fire the commands onto this particular MS SQL database instance via this particular EC2 instance. And how we will be doing it, if you are not exactly aware about this SSH, right, and all these stuffs, so don't worry, we will be covering each and everything in the video itself. Okay, so you can see here, and yeah, to interact, where did it go? Here. Okay, to interact with the data Microsoft SQL database instance, we will be installing some packages of MS SQL onto this EC2 instance also. Okay, how we will be doing it, each and everything, don't worry, I will be showing you around. Okay, so again the same thing says, so the tutorial shows you how to access the database instance from the EC2 instance using the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio client. Okay, so we will be installing a package, you can say MS SQL package, I would say, that client that it is talking about. So it's nothing but a package kind of thing. So MS SQL package, we will be installing it onto our EC2 instance, so that via this particular package we will be able to communicate to our MySQL database instance, sorry, MS SQL database instance. Okay, as a best practice, this tutorial creates a private database instance in a virtual private cloud. In most cases, other resources in the same VPC such as EC2 instance can access the database instance, right? So they are in the same VPC, that is my EC2 and my MS SQL database instance, so they will be easily able to communicate to each other properly, right? But the resources out of the VPC cannot access it. So how I will be accessing it via a VPC or I would say via a SSH is, when I will create this particular EC2 instance, I will attach my IP address in the green list. How I will be attaching it? Again, let's see. Okay, but the resource outside the VPC cannot access it. After you complete this tutorial, there is a public and private subnet in which in each availability zone in your VPC. In one availability zone, the EC2 instance is in the public subnet. Okay, so this EC2 instance is in the public subnet, right? And the database instance is in the private subnet. And here you can see again the database instance is in the private subnet, and that's why the direct connection with the database via the internet is not possible. Important, there is no charge for creating an AWS account. However, by completing this particular tutorial, you might incur cost for the AWS resources you use. You can delete these resources after you complete the tutorial if they are no longer needed, right? So for creating an AWS account, right, we will not have to pay anything, just for creating the account, right? Now whatever instances we will be using in this particular tutorial, we may get charged, right? In most of the cases, if you are new to AWS account, right, if you have created a new AWS account, you will be getting some kind of free tier. So in this, for this particular tutorial, you can use the free tier because we are not going to do any kind of processing, any kind of heavy workload on the machines, right? So there is no use of creating a machine of large instance, right? We just need to understand that how we will be able to launch a database instance, how we will be able to launch an EC2 instance, and how we will be able to connect my database instance, that is in this case Microsoft SQL Server instance, to my EC2 instance, right? How I will be attaching the VPC, right? How I will be, I would say, attaching the VPC, or I can say that how will I create all these services inside a single VPC, right? And so we need to understand all these things. Currently, any kind of data processing and all these concepts are not under the hood. So in that particular case, I would highly recommend you guys that you should go ahead with the free tier of the services if it is available for you, so that you don't get charged even one single penny for this practice purpose, I would say. So the following diagram shows the configuration when the tutorial is complete. Okay. So again, right, obviously this VPC will be created inside a region, right? On top of it, it will have a region, I would say. Right. So we are already aware about the concept of regions and availability zones, right? Okay, so this is the region, and inside this region again there will be an availability zone, and inside that availability zone we will have this particular whole infrastructure that we have discussed. So let me just create it, no worries. Right. So this is my availability zone inside the region, right? And inside this availability zone we have our VPC. Okay, so this is the region. We have the availability zone, then we have the VPC. Then using the internet gateway, because this EC2 instance will be inside a public subnet, right? I will be able to connect it to via a internet, right? And obviously, right, this SSH connection is via internet itself. Okay, so we will be able to connect to the internet to the Amazon EC2 instance, right? And because they are inside the same VPC, that is my EC2 instance and my SQL Server database instance, in that particular case they will be able to communicate with each other. Here, if I wanted to connect to this database directly via the internet, this particular connection would not be possible. Why? Because this database instance lies inside a private subnet. Okay, so it will not be allowed. So this tutorial allows you to create your resource by using one of the following methods. So we can use two methods basically to create this particular whole thing, right? So the first method is the use the AWS management console, that we will be using this particular console to manage everything, right? That is the UI. So we will create a SQL Server database instance and we will create an EC2 instance. Use the CloudFormation to create the database instance and EC2 instance. Again, this is optional, right? So CloudFormation is a service that we usually call as infrastructure as a code service, right? So what we will have is, we will have some kind of either a JSON file or a YAML file where all the configurations of the services, or I would say our requirements, will be mentioned there, right? And based on that particular configuration file, right, or I can say based on that particular template file, I will be able to launch all the mentioned services in that particular template just by one single click of a button. Here currently, like if I am for this video I will go ahead with the AWS management console thing, right? I will use this option currently for this video. Okay, so If I'm going ahead with this AWS management console, I will have to go to and fro to multiple services. First of all, I will have to go to the EC2 instance, then I will have to go to RDS, right? There I will have to select and do all the things in a manual way. Here using CloudFormation, I have to create some kind of template. I have to write some kind of JSON files or YAML file. How it will look like when I will discuss and when I will create this particular whole infrastructure using the CloudFormation, there I will let you know this particular thing in a better way, right? But currently for this video we are going ahead with AWS management console. So the first method uses easy create to create a private SQL server database instance with the AWS management console. Here you specify only the database engine type, database instance size, and database instance identifier. Easy create uses the default settings of the other configuration options, right? So when we will be creating this particular database instance, right, there we will have two options, right? So the first option will be an easy create, and the other option is something like full configuration or something like that, right? So if we are going ahead with the easy create, so we will only have limited options to choose from, right? Limited options means that we will only be able to select limited things, right? Whereas if I will go ahead with the full configuration, I will have an option to choose multiple more things like availability zone, the kind of deployment I need, backups, and all those stuffs. When you choose the standard create, okay, so the other one is standard create. I guess it is right now called as full configuration or something like this. We will see when we will go into our management console, right? Instead, you can specify more configuration options when you create a DB instance. These options include settings for availability, security, backups, and maintenance. To create a public database instance, you must use standard create. For more information, you can go on to this particular link, but currently you don't require. I will let you know each and everything here itself. Okay. So first of all, the prerequisites. Okay. So before you begin, complete the following sections. So sign up with your AWS account. Obviously, if you are not having an AWS account, you will not be able to create these services. So the first and foremost requirement or the prerequisite of creating this whole thing is that of course you should have an AWS account. Once you have created an AWS account, right? So when you will create your account, AWS account, right? So that particular account is usually called as the root user. Okay. So this account, AWS account that you will create using your email, right? So this AWS account that you will create will be called as a root user for you, right? So you will be based on the email address that you are using, you will be your root user. So it is highly recommended by AWS is that you should not use your root account for everyday purposes, right? You should not use your root account for everyday purposes like maybe launching anything, right? Or maybe for anything. For anything, you should not use your root account. Instead, what you should do is you should create multiple accounts that are required from this root account. So here you say as users, right? So here you can create an admin user from this particular root account. So you should create an admin user from this root account who will have the access of all the services that are present on the AWS, right? So you can say this admin user as a sub user of this particular AWS account. Root account should only be used, right, where you have to manage the things, right, for administrative purposes, right, for identity management purposes, for giving the role configuration and all those stuffs. There you should your root account should come into picture. Else it's recommended. It's not that you cannot create, you can use your root account to do all those things, but again it's recommended that you should create different users based on your use case from your root account and do the things using that particular user account. Okay. So this is what it is saying, that create a user with the administrative access. Okay. Once you have done this, you can log into the AWS console using your administrative access user account, right? And then first of all, we will start creating our EC2 instance. Okay. So here create an Amazon EC2 instance that you will use to connect to your database, right? So to create an EC2 instance, first of all, sign in to the AWS Management Console and open Amazon EC2 console at this particular link. So either you can directly click on this particular link, okay, and you will be redirected to this dashboard kind of stuff, right? You will be redirected to this dashboard for your EC2. Else, let's suppose you have directly logged in, right, using your IAM user ID, and then you entered your user name and password. So then in that case, you will be redirected to a page something like this. So once you have redirected to a page something like this, what you can do is on this either search bar, you can search for EC2, right? And you will be shown multiple options, and you can select this first one, that is the virtual server in the cloud, right? You can select either this, or you can click on this particular tab, right? This toast that is there. You can click on all services, and here in the compute also you will be able to see EC2, right? So you can just click on this particular EC2. Again you will be redirected to the very same dashboard that we were redirected in this particular case. So why I'm telling you this is because there are multiple ways in which you can jump onto your EC2 instance dashboard. Okay. Now in the top, or I would say the upper right corner of the AWS Management Console, choose the AWS region you used for the database previously. Okay. So here, if I will come, so here I will be able to select my region, right? So we have already discussed and we are already aware about this particular fact that there are multiple regions that are there that we can choose from inside our AWS account, right? And these regions will be isolated from each other. Whatever services we are creating in one region, it will not be accessible from the other region, right? Let's suppose I have created an EC2 instance in my US East 1 region, right? If some EC2 instance is running on my US East 2 region, or I would say US East 1 region currently, right now also, right? But I will not be able to see it from the Mumbai region. I will have to switch back to this particular region, right? And then only if any of my EC2 instance will be running in this particular region, I will be able to see it. Else I will not be able to see it. Okay. So let me switch back to the Mumbai region itself, right? So that, because currently the location that I am in New Delhi, right? So from New Delhi, Mumbai and Hyderabad are the nearest points where I can find these services, right? So obviously it's again recommended by AWS themselves that we should choose the nearest region from our location, right? If you're using it for ourselves, right? If you're using it for ourselves, we should choose the nearest. Else we should choose the nearest with respect to the user's point of view, right? That if, let's suppose, most of the users or your majority of the users belong to, let's say, Europe, right? So in that particular case, you should go ahead with the European region and not for Mumbai region, even though you are developing your application and maybe your organization is based out of India, right? Then also, because if you are aware about the fact that majority of your users are from Europe, so you should be deploying your infrastructure and deploying your services in the European region. Okay. So now what we have to do is, so we have selected the region, right? So I have selected the Mumbai region, that is AP South 1. Okay. Now what I will do is choose EC2 dashboard and then choose launch instance as shown in the following image, right? So I have to click on this particular launch instance button. So either I can launch using this button, right? And maybe I can also go on to this particular instances thing, right? And from here also I will be able to launch my instance, right? So I will click on launch instances, and now this page opens. Okay. So the launch an instance page opens. So choose the following settings in the launch an instance page. So under the name and tag, for name enter EC2 database connect. Okay, so let me just copy it and paste it here, right? So in the names and tags, right, under the name section I have mentioned what? EC2 database connect. similar to the thing that is recommended to me by the documentation itself. Then under application and OS images, that is Microsoft machine image, choose Windows and then choose the Microsoft Windows Server 22 base. Keep the default selection for the other choices, right? So in the previous video we have chosen Amazon Linux, right? But because this is a Microsoft developed database, right? So obviously I hope all of you are aware about the fact that Windows is developed by Microsoft, right? And again, this Microsoft SQL Server is developed by Microsoft. So it's not that we cannot deploy it on maybe Amazon Linux or maybe on a Mac or Ubuntu, right? We can deploy it, but it is easier to deploy on the Windows operating system, right? And again, you will also get the flavor of all the operating systems here, right? So in the previous video, we had chosen Amazon Linux, right? Then we have Mac operating system, we have Ubuntu, and then we have our Windows operating system also. Then we have Red Hat, then SUSE Linux, and we have Debian. So here we have to choose Microsoft Windows Server 22 base. Okay. So here it is 25 base. So I can go ahead with 25 base also, but because it's recommended that we should go ahead with the server 22 base, so I will choose Microsoft Windows Server 22 base, right? So you can just click on this drop down and you can select from the whatever thing you want to choose, right? You can either go ahead with 25 base also, but let's go ahead with 22 base itself. So here you will be able to see all the description and everything, right? So this is Microsoft Windows 22 Data Center Edition, okay, and all these things. Architecture is 64-bit, AMI ID is this, publishing date is this, username, administrator, and all these things are there, right? Again, we can scroll down. Now under the instance type, choose T2 micro, okay? So in the instance type, I have chosen T3 micro, or I can also choose T2 micro, hardly matters, right? I hope, so currently I'm not getting the free tier because this particular account has, I would say, has completed that free tier time period and the duration of that particular free tier thing. So now I'm not getting anything as free, right? I will be charged even if I'm using it for 1 single second, right? But no worries, right? I will be managing all those stuffs here. But if you're someone who is using it for the very first time, right? And if you have already created an AWS account maybe years before, so what you can do is you don't log in via your previous AWS account, try to create a new account so that in that case you will be able to get your free tier benefits. Okay, just if you don't have even a Gmail ID, create a new Gmail ID. Okay, first create a new Gmail ID, log in using that particular Gmail ID. Okay, and then try to log in to AWS account so that you can get the benefit of the free tier. That's the only reason I am stressing on this particular thing. Else, if you want to pay and if you are I would say good enough to pay, right? If you don't have any issues paying maybe 5,000 or 500 or 1,000 rupees, so it's good that you can pay itself, right? It hardly matters. Now under the key pair login, choose a key pair name to use an existing, or sorry, under key pair login, choose a key pair name to use an existing key pair. To create a new key pair for the Amazon EC2 instance, choose create new key pair and then use the create key pair window to create it. For more information, you can go on to this particular link, right? So here what you will have to do is, right, either if you have already created a key pair, so I already have a key pair, okay, that is VS17 hyphen key pair, right? So this is my key pair which I have already created in the previous video. If you don't have a key pair, so what you can do is you can click on this create new key pair, right? You can click on this, you can give anything, any name, right? So let's suppose VS hyphen key pair, okay, something like this, okay. Keep rest of the things as default, right? So we will use a tool or a terminal to connect to this particular EC2 instance via an SSH. Okay, moving forward. So if you are using PuTTY, okay, if you are using PuTTY, So you have to download this .ppk extension if you want to connect to the EC2 instance via putty tool. Okay, so putty is again a tool, right, for doing these SSH connections, right? I personally I will be using a tool called as MobaXstream. So for MobaXstream, this .pem file is recommended. So and it will be there. Okay, then you can keep this RSA, and then you can just click on this create key pair, and you can download the file that it will give you. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay. So because I have already created it, so I just click on that cancel button, else you can click on create button. That's the only difference that you need to do. Okay. Now for firewall and security groups in network setting, choose allow RDP traffic from connect to the EC2 instance. Okay. So I will come here and I will choose RDP traffic from. Okay. And here what I can do is I can choose my custom, my IP, right? If I'm choosing 0.0.0 also it works, right? There is no issue with this particular thing also, 0.0.0. This thing means that anyone who is having your IP address will be able to connect to your server. Like he will be able to do a request on your server. Okay. But if I'm doing this my IP thing, so only using my system I will be able to do this SSH connection. Okay. What the major difference is, okay, so let's suppose this is my laptop, right? So my laptop, if I talk about personally my laptop, so I'm having this particular IP address 103.48. Okay, so my IP address is 103.48 dot 197.123. Okay, dot 197.123, right? So this is my IP address, right? Obviously every device in the world has their own IP address, right? Now if I'm choosing this allow RDP traffic from my IP address, so what this EC2 instance will do, this IP address will get attached, right? Details of this IP address will get attached to the what we usually call as this security groups, right? So there will be a security group here, right? Kind of table which will have the list of everything, right? That can get access to this particular EC2 instance, right? So if I'm mentioning my IP address, so it will add my IP address here, right? So let me copy it here also, right? It will copy my IP address here. So if I'm connecting to this particular EC2 instance using my IP address in that particular case, right? Let's suppose this is me now, right? So it will allow this particular SSH traffic. Okay, this traffic will be allowed. Now let's suppose someone else with this IP address, right? Let me change it randomly, something like this. Okay, someone with this IP address wants to connect to my EC2 instance now. Okay, so what EC2 will do is, it will try to match this particular IP address with the IP address that is listed here in the table, right? So it will block this particular thing and it will block the SSH request to the EC2, right? Now if I'm selecting here as anywhere, right? So if I'm selecting anywhere, so there will not be any kind of specific IP address here. Anyone and everyone who will have the IP address of this particular of this particular EC2 will be able to connect to this particular EC2 instance. Okay. Now because I have selected anywhere, so even this person having this particular IP address will be able to connect to my EC2 instance. So this is the only difference. So in previous video we went with the IP address. This time we will go with the anywhere thing. Okay, we will go ahead with anywhere. So here for firewall security groups in the network setting, choose allow IP address traffic from to connect to the EC2 instance. You may choose IP my IP if displayed IP address is correct for the RDP connection. Otherwise, you can determine the IP address to use to connect to the EC2 instances in your VPC using RDP. To determine your public IP address in a different browser window or tab, you can use the service at this particular link. For example, your IP address is something like this. So once you have to just click on this particular thing and it will give you your IP address, right? So my IP address is this. Obviously your IP address will be different, right? So in many cases, you might connect through an internet service provider, ISP, or from behind your firewall without a static IP address. If so, make sure to determine a range of IP addresses used by the client computers. Okay. So if you are using some kind of ISP, or if you are an ISP provider, right, or maybe if you are working in an organization, right. So what organizations do is they don't keep a static IP address. They usually shuffle your IP addresses, right? So that there is no kind, like there is a less chance of the cyber attacks and cyber fraud, which uses IP addresses or which tracks IP addresses. Okay. So your IP address will be behind a firewall in this particular case. So what you can do is you can define a range of IP addresses also. So here if you will come, and here if you go to custom, right? So here you can add and define the range of IP addresses that you want to. Okay. So here you can define your IP addresses or your range of IP addresses. Let me keep again it to anywhere. Warning, if you use 0.0.0.0 for your RDP access, you make it possible for all IP addresses to access your public EC2 instance using the RDP. This approach is acceptable for a short time in the test environment, but it's unsafe for the production environment. In production, authorize only the specific IP addresses or range of addresses to access your EC2 instance using the RDP, right? So again, currently, like we are only doing it for a short period of time. I will just show you guys and I will delete all the resources that I have created. So I can go ahead with 0.0.0, that is allow it from anywhere. Else, if I want to keep it safe, I can also go ahead with my IP, right? So even you will be able to see this warning goes down if I am choosing my IP, right? It gets removed, but let's go ahead with anywhere, right? Let's have some thrill. So the following image shows an example of the network settings section. Okay. Now keep the default values of the remaining section. So here I will be keeping all the other things as a default. Here if you want to add some storage, so this is about storage, right? Now let's suppose if I want my machine to have 300 GB of storage, so I can keep it as 300 GB, but obviously I don't require that much storage, right? I only need 30 GB of storage, so let me keep it 30 GB. Let me give you a disclaimer, don't try to add any unwanted storage here, because you will also be charged for this particular added volume that you have added to your EC2 instance, right? So don't try to add any irrelevant kind of storage to your machine. Okay. Now review the summary of your EC2 instance configuration in the summary panel, and when you are ready, choose launch instance. Okay. So here you can see there is a summary of EC2 instances, the number of instance. Okay. The number of instance. So here if you want to, let's suppose, launch more than one instance, let's suppose if you want to launch 3 instance, you can launch right here as 3. And in this case, 3 instance will be launched, but here I only require 1 instance, right? So the machine, right, that you are using, right, or you can say the base operating system. So what it will do is it will create a machine in some Mumbai region, right? There will be a machine inside the Mumbai region, and on this machine it will install this Windows Server operating system. Okay, it will install this Windows Server operating system, something like this. The machine size will be this T2 micro, right? Here if you come, so your machine will be T2 micro, which will have 1 core, 1 GB of RAM, right? And we have already attached 30 GB of volume, right? So the volume that I will be having is 30 GB. Okay. Firewall security group, right? It has automatically been attached here itself. Okay. So I can just click on now this launch instance. If I click on this preview code thing, right? So you will be redirected to something like this. So if you want to use CLI to do these same things, you can copy the code and you can use your CLI. If you want to connect using some kind of SDK, right? Maybe if you want to connect using Java, or you want to automate the things using the SDKs, I would say, right? So in that case, let's suppose if you want to do using Python. So we are already aware about the fact that if I want to use Python SDK, in that particular case, I will communicate or I will connect to my services using the Boto3 library, right? So I will have to import Boto3, then from Boto3 core.exceptions, right? Then I will have to create my EC2 client, right? And all these things means each and everything is mentioned here based on this requirement that I have created, right? And I can just copy this particular code, or I can directly download this particular code, and I can use this code to launch an instance via my Python command also, if required, right? So I can do that particular thing also, but I will not be doing it currently. I will just click on this launch instance button. So it will hardly take a few seconds to launch it. So I can go on to this instances thing. And let me refresh it. Cool. So here you can see now my instance is in a running state, right? Here you can see the name of the instance that we have mentioned when we created the instance, right? Here you will be able to see your instance ID, your instance state, right? Then your instance type, that is T2 micro, right? Then status check. So status check means it will try to get the health check and all those stuff. So it is currently in the initialization phase. Alarm status, right? So you can create new alarms depending on the kind of alarm that you want to set up. Okay, so let's suppose if you want to create an alarm that, let's say if your resource utilization or your CPU utilization goes above 80%, a mail should be triggered to you, right? So you can create all those kind of alarms here. Now if I talk about the availability zone, right? So we are already aware about the fact of the reason, right, that we had selected AP South 1, and inside AP South 1 it has deployed it in AP South 1B availability zone. Okay, then we have our public v4 DNS, right, which we will require later on. Then we have our public v4 IP address. There is no kind of elastic IP address. There is no kind of IPv6 that has been attached. Monitoring currently is disabled. Security group name is launch wizard 7. Key pair name is VS17 key pair. Launch time is this. Platform is Windows. Manage defaults and operator is dash, right? So these are some details that we are getting about our EC2 instance. Cool. So on the launch status page, note the identifier of your EC2 instance, for example, this like this. So this is the identifier. This DB instance is nothing but, or the instance ID, I would say, not the DB instance. The EC2 instance ID is our identifier, or here also you will be able to get the same thing, right? Instance ID, right? Here you are getting all the details that we are getting. A lot of more details here we will be getting, right? IP address, host type, right? Answer private, resource DNS name, right? Auto IP assign address. Okay, so this is the public IP address. IAM role currently it's not mentioned here. This operator is not mentioned. Public IP for public IP v4 address. Current status is this. Private IP DNS name. Type of the instance, VPC ID, subnet ID, right? Instance ARN, right? Private IP address, public DNS, elastic IP address, right? Compute and all these things are here. Then the instance detail, that is the AMI ID, which kind of image I am using. AMI name, which is Windows Server 2022, right? Full base and all these things. Stop protection is disabled. Instance reboot migration is by default on. Hibernation behavior, monitoring, and all these things, right? You can get almost all the details right here. Okay, then status as status and alarm, as I was already talking about. You can see, right, actions and all these things you can define, and you can create some kind of status check alarm if required. We will be doing all these things when we will discuss more about the EC2 instance. Currently we are focusing on the RDS, so we will keep our focus on the RDS itself. In monitoring, here you will be able to see everything, right? CPU utilization, network out, network packets in, network packet out, metadata, CPU credit uses, and CPU credit balance, and all these things details you will be getting here. Talking about the security thing, so you will get all your inbound rules, outbound rules attached here itself. Here you will get everything and every information about your networking, your VPC ID, subnet ID, availability zone ID, okay, public IP address, private IP address, and all these things will be here itself. Then the storage part you will be able to see here itself, and tags, if any kind of tag is given, so you will be able to see all those tags in this particular tab. Okay. Then choose the EC2 instance identifier to open the list of EC2 instances. Wait until the EC2 instance state in your EC2 instance is in the status of running before continuing, right? So here our state is in the running state, so we can continue with our rest of the things. Now we will start creating our SQL Server database instance. Okay. So now what we will do is we will try to create a SQL Server DB instance. So the basic building block of the Amazon RDS is the DB instance. This is environment is where you run your SQL Server databases, right? Now what we will do is we will try to create the RDS, okay, and inside this RDS we will try to spin up a DB instance. In this example, you can use easy create to create the DB instance running the SQL Server database engine with a db.t2 micro DB instance class. So to create Microsoft SQL DB instance with easy create, you can sign into the AWS management console and open the Amazon RDS console at this particular link, or again you can follow the same instructions, and as you can search here for RDS and you can get the things going. I will just click on this link. Okay. Now once you will click on this link, there will be a very high probability that you will end up in the same region in which you have created your EC2 instance. But it's better that you guys just do a cross check that you have or you are in the very same region in which your EC2 instance is there, right? Because if you will launch the EC2 instance in other region, right, and you will be launching your DB instance in the other region, in that particular case, any kind of network transaction is happening, or network is you can say a data transfer is happening. In that particular case, we will be charged on both of the sides. We will be charged on the EC2 instance side also, and we will be charged on the RDS side also. And as I was telling you guys that, okay, let me first of all come to dashboard and let me refresh this page. So here you will see that the number of instances that are running is 1. In which region? In Mumbai region, correct? Now if I just click on this drop down and if I go to US East 1, let's say, right? So here even if I refresh it, you will be able to see that the number of running instances are 0. Hence this proves that all the regions are isolated. We will not be able to for sure we can interconnect the resources of one region to the other region, but using the dashboard or using the console, we will not be able to view the resources in one region of the other region. Here also you can see that you are using the following EC2 resources in the United States North Virginia region, right? It's clearly mentioned here. Again, if I switch back to the Mumbai region, okay, so here you will be seeing the details that you are using the following EC2 resources in the Asia Pacific Mumbai region, right? And we are very sure that in the Mumbai region itself, we had created the EC2 instance. So same, we will have to go. So on the upper right corner of the Amazon RDS console, choose the AWS region in which you want to create the DB instance. And it should be similar to the EC2 instance or the region of the EC2 instance in which we have created. Then in the navigation pane, choose databases. Okay. So in navigation pane, I will choose databases. So I can choose database, click on this particular button. or I can also click on this DB instances. Both are equally same. So I will click on this databases. Next, choose create database and make sure the easy create is chosen. Okay, so I will click on create database, and here you can see there is an option of full configuration and there is an option of easy create, right? So let's see what it's asking us to do next. Okay, so in the configuration, so first of all it is asking me to choose the easy create one. Okay, so let's choose easy create. Okay, and now in the configuration, choose Microsoft SQL Server, right? So in the configuration I have to do what? I have to choose Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, so after that, for the edition, choose Microsoft Server Express Edition. Okay, so for edition, there is no kind of edition thing right now, right? Okay, so there is no kind of edition option that I am getting, so it's fine. Microsoft SQL Server we have chosen. Okay, so for the DB instance size, choose the free tier. Free tier appears for the free plan accounts. Sandbox appears for the paid plan accounts, right? So if you will be having your free tier, so it will appear right here. Else, I can choose this dev/test, and this is the production instance. So if you are going ahead with the production instance, the DB that we will be using is db.r5xl, where I will have 4 core CPUs, 32 GB RAM, 400 gigs of space, and we will be charged 3.847 US dollar per hour, right? And here you can see if I am going with the dev and test version, so we will have this DB M5 large instance. We will have 2 cores of CPUs, 8 gigs of RAM, and 200 gigs of SSD, and we will be charged 1.114 USDs per hour. Okay, so currently, because I don't require any kind of too much of compute, so I will go ahead with dev/test itself. Again, sorry guys. Okay, again I'll be saying the same thing, that if you are using your like if you're using a new AWS account and if you have created it newly, right, so you will also be having some kind of free tier here, so you can go ahead with the free tier, right? So something like this. Okay, so here you will be having your configuration, so you can select MySQL. Edition wise, ideally I should get the section of also, maybe they may have removed. Okay, so no worries, and again you will be getting some kind of free tier, something like this, right? So for the instance size, choose free tier. Sandbox appears. For the database instance classifier, sorry, instance identifier, enter this particular name. So I can just copy and paste the identifier name here, database test 1. Okay, the create database page should appear look similar to the following image. For free plan accounts, choose free tier. For the paid plan accounts, choose the sandbox appears, right? So paid, if there will be paid, so you will not be getting this free tier one, right? We will only get this dev/test one, right, which is we are seeing here. So for the master username, enter the username of the master user and keep the default name, right? So I can either master username means this username will belong to the database username or the master user of the database. So either I can give it some other name or I can keep it as admin itself. Let's suppose this time I'm giving as Vishal. Okay, now we have, okay, let's go ahead with the documentation. So, or keep the default name. So to set up a connection with the EC2 instance you created previously, open setup EC2 connection, that is optional. Select connect to EC2 instance, compute resource and instance you created previously. Okay, so here what we will have to do now is we will have to open this drop down, right? So here you will have to choose what? compute resource. So choose whether to set up a connection to a compute resource for this database. Setting up a connection will automatically change the connectivity settings so that the compute resource can connect to the database. So here, yes, we want to connect to the EC2 compute resource, right? So I will click on this, and here in the drop down, you will fetch all the details of the EC2 instances that you will be having, right? So I will do what? I will just click on this drop down. So currently I'm having only one single instance running here, right? So currently I'm having one single instance. So only that instance is visible. If I would had multiple instances, so I can choose from that which instance do I want to connect. So I'm aware about the fact that EC2 database connect is the is the machine's name, right? So here you can see EC2 database connect. So I can choose this particular machine. So here it's saying that some VPC settings can't be changed with a compute resource is added. Now what AWS will do is it will automatically create the security group for of the VPC that will be there for the database and the EC2 instance. Okay. So here you can read it very clearly that adding an EC2 compute resource automatically selects the VPC, database subnet group, and public access settings of this particular database. So now the AWS itself will be choosing all the stuffs, that is the VPC, the database subnet group, and the public access settings of the database to allow the EC2 instance to access the database. A VPC security group which will be named RDS EC2 RDS-EC2X is added to the database, and another called EC2 RDSX is added to the EC2 instance. You can remove the new security group of the database only by removing the compute resource. So if we want to remove these security groups that will be added to the database and the EC2 instance, I can only remove these security groups if I remove this particular compute instance, or if I detach this compute instance from my database. Okay. Next, to use an automatically generated master password for the DB instance, select the auto generate password box or enter the master password. Clear the auto generate password box and then enter the same password in the master password and the confirm password thing. Okay, so I will come back here, and here if you will see, so I can select first of all the self-managed thing, right? And I will do what? I can enter some kind of password. So I will enter a very a minimal password. So I can enter something like, let's suppose, root. Okay, and root. Okay, and again in the confirm password I will do root. That's it. Okay, done. And now what I will do is, now open the default view default settings for easy create. So I can click on this drop down. So you can see here that what all configurations and for that particular configuration what value is currently there, and is it editable after database is created or not. Okay, so talking about the encryption, so encryption is enabled for this particular database, and we cannot disable the encryption once the database has been created. Okay, these fields are not editable. Again, VPC, once we have attached a VPC, right, it is not editable after we have created and after we have launched the database instance. Multi-availability zone deployment, right? So currently we are going ahead, so it is no, means we are going ahead with a single availability zone deployment, and it's for sure editable after we have created the instance. Option group, so this is the option group value that we have. Is it editable once the database is created? Yes, it's editable. Subnet group, is this current subnet group is there, we can also edit it after the database has been created. Automated backups, it's enabled and it is editable after creating the database. VPC security group, so currently this is the security group, right? RDS EC2 -2, right? It has already been added, and yes, it's editable. Publicly accessible, you can see right here, right? So the publicly accessible value is currently no. Okay, and it's editable, yes. So if we want to make our database publicly accessible, so we can change this no default, this default value as no to yes, and we can for sure change it later on once we have deployed or once we have initialized the database instance. The database port that our database will be running on will be 1433. Identifier is database 1. Database engine version is this. Okay, DB parameter group is this. Monitoring type is database insights standard. Performance insights is enabled. Monitoring is enabled. Maintenance auto minor version upgrade is enabled, and delete protection not enabled. Okay, and now once we click on create a database, our database will get created. One more thing I would like to show you guys before moving forward is if I go to full configuration. If I go to full configuration, here we will have multiple options to choose from. Okay, so here we will be able to choose the database management type. So if I want to choose, like, if I want it to be fully managed, so I will go ahead with Amazon RDS. If I want that something I should manage and some things Amazon should manage, so I can also select Amazon custom RDS. Okay, here maybe you can see here that the engine version and all these things are now given here, right? So I can choose SQL Server, whatever server I want to use, SQL Server 2019, 2022, and things like that. Even the different versions are available here. If I will go ahead with Amazon RDS, so I will only be able to choose the edition of it. So SQL Server Express Edition, okay, SQL Server Web Edition, Standard Edition, right, Enterprise Edition, and uh, Developer Edition. So there are multiple editions that are there, right? So I can either choose any one of them, and I can choose, let's suppose, the latest one. So this is the latest one, 16.0. So I have chosen it. Again, here in the templates, so we have dev/test and we have sandbox. So let's go ahead with the sandbox. Here I can give any name, right? Master username is given, password is given here, right? Here I will be able to choose my instance type also, right? So here I can choose, let's suppose, okay, so currently only T3 micro is enabled. I believe if I go to managed AWS, not this one, if I go to dev/test, in that case, I hope other will also get enabled, right? So I can choose maximum up to 4 core CPU, 16 GB RAM, right, which will have the EBS bandwidth as 2780 Mbps, and the network will be up to 5 Gbps. Okay, so let's go ahead with sandbox itself. Okay, and here I will go ahead with T2 micro itself, so that I don't get charged, right? This is the bare minimum instance that I have currently. Again, talking about the storage types, so we are already aware about this fact that we have multiple storage types, right? We have general purpose SSD, then we have of GP2 and GP3 series, then we have provisioned IOPS SSDs of IOPS 1 and IOPS 2 series, and we also have magnetic series. So currently magnetic, as you can see here, it's not recommended, right? If I want to go ahead with provisioned IOPS SSD, that is IO2, it is having low latency and high durability. So for input output intensive storage, I should go ahead with this. This is the baseline performance determined by volume size. So currently we will not have any kind of high volume, so I can keep it as this much only. Here you can mention how much storage do you want for your database. So currently it's 20 GB. So you can mention it from 20 GB to 16,384 GB. Okay, if you want any other configuration and all those stuffs, auto scaling and all these things, so you can mention it here also. Okay, and connectivity wise, I want to connect it to my SQL instance, and this is the instance that I want to connect to, right? And again, here you can choose your database subnet group, right? Is it publicly accessible or not, right? So because it is connected to the EC2 instance, it's not currently publicly accessible. If I click on this, so now you can see I can also make my instance directly publicly accessible without the EC2 connection. Okay, so I can just click on this connect with EC2, right? And I hope I have selected the correct EC2 instance here, right? Yes. Okay, so VPC and all those things are now being taken care by AWS itself. Okay, and so launch wizard 7. Let's not add anything. Availability zone, RDS proxy, and all these things. Okay, Monitoring you can also see, right? You can select either you want advanced monitoring, if you want standard monitoring. If you want the advanced monitoring, it will retain the performance, 15-month performance history, fleet level monitoring integration with CloudWatch application signals. Here it will retain only the 7 days performance history, with the option to pay the retain up to 24 months of the performance history, right? So here I can select the retention period also, for how many months I want. So let's keep it as 7 days itself, no worries. Account key name and all those things you can get here, right? Enable monitoring, export logs, agent log, error logs, and all those stuffs. Additional configuration. So what is the DB parameter group you want to select? Options group, time zone, right? So if I want, let's suppose my time zone to be Indian time zone, okay, IST. So I can select the time zone also. Else, by default, it will be UTC, okay. Backup wise, you can select here. Backup retention period, you can select here, right? Backup window. So if I want that, okay, every day at this point of time, it should be there. So I can choose a window. Let's suppose 7 UTC, 7 AM UTC, or maybe make it 2 AM UTC, right, in the night, and the duration will be of, let's suppose, half an hour. So this is how we can choose the backup preference also. So currently I can do is no preference. Then backup tags, EM keys, right? Maintenance windows, and all these things we can also select from here itself, right? So if you are going ahead with the full-fledged thing, right, full configuration, I will have to choose multiple things, and for sure I should be aware about all these stuffs that are here, right? So either I can just click on create database from here also. So I will just click on create a database using these parameters itself. So it will now start creating my database instance. It will take, I guess, 1 or 2 minutes to create this particular database. On the top also you can see, right, your database might take a few minutes to launch. You can use the settings here to suggest the database add-ons and finish creating your database for you, right? So we will have to wait a minute or two so that our database gets created. So I guess it should take a few more seconds to launch now. It will launch anytime soon. It's taking longer than usual to create, I guess. Okay. Not sure why it's taking this long. Let me refresh it. Status is creating itself. Okay, let it create. Not really sure why it's taking this long time. Okay, so CPU is now visible. It means we are on the correct track. I figured out if I have done something wrong or what. But CPU is now visible, so it means it is getting created. We are on the right track. We will have to wait a few minutes again. I believe. Okay, great. Cool. So now you can see, right, that we have successfully created the database, right, which is database test one. So you can use the settings of the database test one to simplify the configuration and all these stuffs. Whereas we have also successfully set up a connection between database one and the EC2 instance, this instance, right, means our database has been launched, and even the connection has already been established with the EC2 instance. Cool. And here I believe if I refresh it, so currently the status is in configuration mode. Let this status be in complete mode, then a complete or maybe running in some kind of status, it will change similar to this state, right? And then we will continue doing our job. You can see the status has now been changed to backing up, right? So it is basically configuring the whole database for us, and for that reason, it is taking this long time, I would say. Okay, so now you can see the status has been changed to available. Cool. So ultimately the patients paid off, and now our database instance has been successfully launched, and it has been connected to the EC2 instance. Okay, if I come back to this particular diagram, right? So our database has been launched. So this launch has been done successfully, right? EC2 has already been launched successfully, and it has been created inside a VPC availability zone and region. Here, if I come, right, so you can see, right, region and availability zone. So AP South 1 is the region, and 1B is the availability zone of the AP South 1 region, right? Here you will be able to see all the details like the status, role, the engine, right? So it is SQL Server Express Edition, right? Upgrade is second. What is the instance size, right? Any kind of recommendation is there. The CPU utilization, right? Then current activity, okay, maintenance, VPC, and multi availability zone. Again, if you want to know more about the database, so you can just click on this and you will get all the details of the database here. So connectivity and security wise, so endpoint and port, right? So as this was the endpoint I was talking about, right? So even though if I am having this particular endpoint, and if I have given the option as is it publicly accessible as no, so anyone with even this endpoint will not be able to access my database. Okay, you will only and only be able to access my database through my EC2 instance. Okay. Again, talking about the networking part. So availability zone is this VPC is this is the VPC that I have attached, subnet group, right? So this is the subnet group. These are the subnets which has been attached, and network type is IPv4. Security wise, so VPC security group. So this is the security group that has been attached. Publicly accessible is no, right? Again, hence this endpoint will not be anyhow is accessible via the internet. Certificate authority date, and DB instance certificate expiration date. Okay, talking about the monitoring part. So you will be able to monitor these things. Currently no data is available because okay, you can see few of the data is available and few of the data is not available because it has just been launched. So when we will start doing some kind of activity in that particular case, you will see this graph growing in different terms. Logs and events, you will be able to see each and everything, right? So database restarted, instance created, monitoring interval changed to this, backup database instance, all these stuffs are, you can see right here, right? So this is yesterday's, I believe. Okay, yes, this is yesterday's. Okay, and this one is today's instance. Okay, so instance database created, performance inside enabled, monitoring interval changed to 0, backup database instance, and finish the database instance backing. Okay, this one is the yesterday's one. Yesterday we have also recorded for the MariaDB instance. Okay, you can see all the logs and everything here itself. Configuration wise, you can see the instance configuration, the instance ID, engine, database name, model, right, collation, and all these stuffs you will be able to see. Instance class, you will be able to see here what is the number of cores it is having, what is the RAM is 1 GB, availability, username is this, master password which we have entered, that is root, right? Database authentication, multiple availability zone not available, secondary zone is not available because you are not using the multi availability zone deployment. Talking about the encryption, it's enabled. Then KMS key is there at this particular link. So storage type is GP2, storage is 20 GBs, provisioned IOPS, we did not enable it, and all these stuffs are here. Monitoring wise, again, all the stuffs are right here. Then maintenance and backup, right? So minor upgrade, it has been disabled. Maintenance window is this, pending maintenance, anything, pending modifications, and all those options you will get right here. Tags and recommendations, if there will be any. So you will be getting all the details of based off this particular database, that is test database 1, right here in your console dashboard itself, right? Let's move forward. So the database list is done. Okay, so when the status is changed to available, you can now connect to the database instance. Depending on the DB instance and class, and the amount of storage, it can take up to 20 minutes before the new instance is available, right? So it takes time to launch the instance. Okay, so now the status is available. It means my database is now ready to get connected. So currently we are not going the using cloud formation, so we can skip this part for now. Now we will do what? We will now try to connect our SQL Server database instance. So the following procedure, uh, in the following procedure, you connect your database instance using the Microsoft SQL Server uh, Management Studio. So to connect to an RDS for the SQL Server DB instance using SSMS, find the endpoint, that is the DNS name and the port number of your DB instance. That is, first of all, we will have to sign into here, and on the upper right corner we will have to select the region, navigate to the database, choose the SQL Server database instance name displayed in its details. On the connectivity tab, copy the endpoint, also note the port number. You need both the endpoints and the port number to connect to the database instance, which we already know. If I just click on this, so connectivity and security, right here we have the endpoint and the port number. So this is the endpoint and this is the port number that we should have. Okay, so endpoint and port number. Now connect to the EC2 instance that you created earlier by following the steps in the connect your Microsoft Windows EC2 instance in the Amazon EC2 guide. Okay, so I will have to go to this particular link. So let me open this link. Windows instance. Okay, so I will have to do what? Retrieve the initial administrator. So open the EC2 console at this particular link. So I already have my EC2 console right here. Then I will have to do what? Navigate the pane and choose the instances. So this is the instance that I want to connect to. Okay, and then select the instance and then choose connect. Okay, so I will select the instance and then I will choose connect. Okay, and here I will have to do what? To connect to the instance page, choose the RDP client tab. Okay, so I will come here and I will choose RDP client tab. For username, choose the default username of the administrator account. The username you must choose must have the language of the operating system contained in the AMI you launched to launch your instance. If there is no username of the same language of your OS, choose administrator other. Okay, so I will just come here. Okay, and username I will keep as administrator other. Okay, or maybe administrator English itself. Okay, let it be. And now what I will do is choose get password. Okay, so I will come here and I will choose get password. Okay, and now so on the Windows get password page, do the following. Choose the upload private file, that is the PEM file that you specify on the launch. When you launch the instance, select the file and choose open to copy the entire contents of the file of this window. Choose decrypt password. Okay, so let me do first thing first. I will upload my PEM file. So I will upload this. Okay, and I will click on decrypt password. Cool. So this is the password that I have got, right? So you can see, choose decrypt password. The get window password page closes and the default administrative password of the instance appears under the password, replacing the get password link shown previously. Copy the password and save it somewhere safe. The password is required to connect to the instance. Okay, so I will copy the password and let me keep it safe. So I will paste it here. Okay, cool. It's done. So the following procedure uses the remote desktop connection, that is the RDP connection client for the Windows MSTSC. If you are using the different RDP client, download the RDP file and use the documentation of this. Now we have to do what? To connect to the Windows instance using RDP client. On the Window Connect instance page, choose download desktop file. Okay, so I will have to choose this particular thing, download remote desktop file. So I will download it. Okay, and then what I will have to do is, when the file is finished download, choose cancel and return to the instance page. The RDP file is downloaded in your downloads folder. Okay, so I can cancel it. Cool. Now run the exe file to open the RDP client. Okay, so I will run this particular client. So I will click on connect. The password it is asking me is the password which we copied. So this is not the password of your local system, right? Make sure this is the password of the client. Okay, cannot be verified. You want to connect anyway. So yes. So now you can see, I believe you guys can see, right? We are getting connected to a, so this thing is now of the EC2 instance. Okay, so this is an EC2 instance Windows machine that has been launched somewhere in Mumbai. So it is setting things up for me. Not very sure. So even I have used Windows for once or twice only, right? Most of the times we prefer using Linux because we don't have all these stuffs going on when we are going ahead with the Linux thing. Okay, so you can see this machine is very similar to the Windows system that we have onto our local thing, right? We have our Microsoft Edge, we have the EC2 instance, we have the EC2 feedback and all these stuffs, right? So let me do one thing. So do you want to allow your PC recommended of the following home networks, not the public one? I can click on yes. Okay, and let me just minimize it a bit so that I have the other things also visible to me. Okay, now expand show options and choose open. Select the RDP file from the downloads folder. By default, the computer is public IP v4 DNS name and the instance, and the username is the administrator account. To connect to the instance using IPv, replace this thing. Choose connect, enter the password previously saved. Okay, and due to the nature of self-signed certificates, you might get a warning of the security certificate, right? That could not be authenticated. Do one of the following. If the trust certificate, choose yes to connect to the instance. Okay, Windows before proceed, right? That's the same warning that we got, right? uh, if you trust the certificate, choose yes to connect to the instance. Before you proceed, compare the thumbprint of the certificate with the value in the system log to confirm the identity of the remote computer. Choose view certificate and choose the thumbprint from the details tab. Compare this value to the value of the RDP certificate thumbprint in actions, monitor and troubleshoot, get the log. For Mac, you have to do this thing. Now, if the RDP connection is successful, the RDP client displays the window login screen and then the Windows desktop. If you receive an error message instead, see this particular link and you get all these things, right? Okay, so means our connection is now successful. I can see this window screen, right? This clearly means that my connection with the you can see here, right, EC2 database instance, and this is my IP address. Like this is basically my endpoint of my EC2 instance, right? And remote desktop connection, right? It means my connection has been successful. Now to install the SQL Server Management Studio, that is SSMS client from the Microsoft, to download it, uh, to download a standalone version on your EC2 instance, see this particular link. Okay, I will have to go again back to this link. So download your this. Okay, so will I have to open it? Because here if I download it will start downloading in my local, right? I don't want it in my local currently. I want it here. So let me do one thing. Let me go to Microsoft Edge. Not very sure how much will it support. So use the start menu to open the Internet Explorer. Use the Internet Explorer to download and install a standalone. If you are prompted that the site isn't trusted, add the site to the trusted list. Okay. So I will have to expand it a bit. So start without your data. Confirm and continue. Continue without Google data. Confirm and start browsing. Take back. So I don't think I will be able to copy this particular thing from my system to this system. Let me just copy the link. See, only. Not responding, I guess. Let me close and reopen this RDP connection. Why is it taking too long this time? Okay, it's prompted me for the password. Let me copy and paste the password. Click on OK. Click on yes. Okay. Come here, try to paste it here. Enter. Okay. And then I can click on this particular studio management installer. So I will just click on download, right? Don't try to download into your local for sure, else it will install into your local. It will not install into your server, right? So you need to understand this thing. And I will double click it to install in the similar way I install on my local system. So I can click on continue. Okay, so installing this here. Okay, so I don't need anything else, right? I don't need, let's suppose, AI powered assistance and all those stuff. So I will just click on this. Okay, I will click on this install, or maybe code tools business intelligence. Let me just minimize this. Okay, and I don't need this also. From the client Microsoft, to download it here on your EC2, click on this link. This, use the Internet Explorer. Start this will the dialog box appears. Okay, got it. So I can just click on install. Okay, so now it's, you can see SQL Server Management Studio 22 is getting installed now. So SQL Server is basically an enterprise grade database, right? It's not an open source database, and for that reason, we have a few restrictions and a few limitations. Okay, and for that very same reason, it is taking even a lot of steps as compared to MariaDB was pretty quick, right? And here we have to do multiple things to get it done. So no issues. Let it be. 51% has been installed. I guess we'll have to wait for 1 or 2 minutes more. Okay, so the installation has been completed. Now I can just click on launch. Okay, if I go back to my, so this is this window, or let me just click on launch. Could have chosen for a larger instance. so that the things would have been a bit smoother, I would say. So still it's launching a bit. Okay. So you can now see it's asking me for the server name, right? The username, password, and all these things. Okay. So let's see what all things do we have to enter here. So let me minimize it. Okay. Now it will start the server. The connect to server dialog box appears. It's absolutely fine. Provide the following information for your sample database instance. So for server type, choose the database engine. Server type. Okay, so currently I don't have any server type. Server name it's asking me. For server name, enter the DNS name followed by the comma and the port number. The default port number is this, for example, something like this. Okay. So I will come back to my RDS. I will copy this endpoint. Okay. I will open my RDC, right? And I will paste it here. I will put a comma and I will enter the default port number, that not the default port number, the port number that I can see here, that is 1433, right? So make sure you enter the endpoint as well as the port number. Okay, something like this. Then for authentication, choose SQL Server authentication. So here I have to choose SQL Server authentication. Okay. For login, enter the username that you chosen for the sample database instance known as the master name and the password. Cool. So I will enter my username as Vishal and the password was root. Okay. And I can remember my password, right? And I can just click on now connect. So choose connect. After a few moments, SSMS connects to the DB instance. For security, it's the best practice to use the encrypted connection. Only use the unencrypted SQL server connection when the client and the server are in the same VPC. So currently we are in the same VPC and network is trusted. For more information, you can go on to this link. Okay. So I will click on connect. So encryption was enabled. This collection is reviewed by this is. Click on OK. Let me maximize it. Okay. Error encryption server was enabled for this. Review your SSL certificate configuration for the target, or enable the server trust certificate in the dialog box. Okay. I have to enable this thing also. Okay. I have to enable this, or here I can choose as. Okay. Let's first of all enable it, and database wise. Okay. So okay, let's keep it as a default itself, right? Now let's click on connect. Something is happening, not very sure what. Okay, it is opening now. Okay. Let me minimize this. Now you can see here, explore your sample SQL Server database instance. You can explore the sample database instance using the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, right? So to explore the database instance using SSMS, your SQL Server database instance comes with a SQL Server standard inbuilt system database, master, model, MSDB and TempDB, right? So if I open this again, right, and if I maximize it, so you will be able to see if I go to databases, and here you will be able to see, right, system databases, database snapshot, and RDS admin. Let me go to systems databases. So here you will be able to see master, model, uh, MSDB, and TempDB. That's exactly what it is mentioned here. So in the SSMS view, in the SSMS on the view menu, choose the object explorer, right? So this is what we have chosen here only. Here, right, objects explorer, right? And here you will be able to see in the systems database. So expand your database instance, expand the database, and then expand the systems database. I shown something like this. Your SQL Server database instance also comes with a database named RDS admin. So the Amazon RDS uses its database to store the object that it uses to manage your database. The RDS admin database also includes a stored procedure that you can run to perform the advanced scale. So what is this stored procedure and all those things? Currently you need not worry too much about it, right? But we are able to see the same things I mentioned here, right? We are also able to see this RDS admin database right here. Okay. Now creating your own database and running the queries against the database instance as usual. So to run a test query against the sample database, do the following. In SSMS, on the file menu, point to the new and then choose query with the current connection. Okay. So let me expand it and I will click on this file. No, where did we have to do? File menu and then click on new. Okay. So let me maximize it. File menu and then we have to click on new and I will have to click on query with current connection, right? So let me click on this. Okay, so it has opened a window for me, right? So let me close this one. Let me close this window. Not sure how will I able to maximize it. Property full screen presenter. I'm just trying to make the font larger. Editor, I believe. Let it be. Else you can find the code here in the documentation also, right? My bad. I will close this, right? So I have opened the connection and now enter the SQL query, that is select at the rate version, something like this. Okay. So let me just copy it back here and paste it here. Right, and let me just click on execute button here. So you can see here, I am getting the response of this query that I have ran here. That is, I am getting the version of my current, like I'm getting the version of the current database version that I'm having, right? And let me do one more thing. Okay. Now let's try to create a new database. Okay. So let's play with this. We have done a lot of hard work to set it up. So let's play with it. Okay. So I will do what? First of all, I will try to list a database. Okay. So to list a database, I will do what? Let's suppose I do show databases. I believe it's list database, something like this. Okay, I have to do something like this. Select name from system dot database. This. Okay. Now if I try to execute it, you can see all the databases are listed here, right? Master DB, temp DB, model, and RDS admin. Now I will try to do what? I will try to create a new database. So I will do what? Come back to a new line and create database. Let's suppose Vishal DB, something like this. Okay, obviously a very random name. Execute. You can see query is getting executed right now. Could not obtain extensive lock on the model. Retry. Method could not be created. That's a related error. Okay. I guess I can zoom in something like this. Okay. Okay, I can zoom in like this, guys. This is too large. 200 is fine, I believe. Okay. So database creation has been failed. Okay, let me do it something like this. Create database. This. Okay. On. Give a few parameters. Suppose I can just copy it. Right. Okay. Let's try to execute this query. Let's see. Failed the operation time. Completed with errors. Okay. Let's do this. So database has not been created. What was the error? Okay, it cannot find the specified path. Okay. I remove this thing. This if I want to do. Okay, let me just copy and paste the error. To simply create, yes, I can create it like this also. Okay, yeah. So I can create it. I'm not very sure why I did not create it earlier, right? So now you can see that my database has been created, right? Inside my, so currently this database is getting created where, if I talk about, so this database is getting created currently in this RDS database, right? Inside this RDS test one database, okay? These are the databases that are present. If I scroll down, okay? So name, master database, temp DB, model, MS database, RDS admin, and currently this my database is present inside this particular database, test one of my RDS. Okay. And now if I come back here again, so okay, it's asking me to delete the instances, or it's basically telling me how I can delete my instances. So if you want, right, you guys can play more with this particular instance, right? Now let's suppose if I want to create some tables and all, right? So I will do what? I will just come here. So create. So first of all, before creating a table, I will have to do was I will have to basically switch to this particular database, right? And for switching to this particular database, I will use a command as use, okay, my database, something like this, and then I will execute it. So now I am using my database, okay, and now I will do what? I will try to create a new table, okay. So let's create this table, a dummy table, right, where I will have ID, name, email is active, and created it, right? So let me just copy it and done. So command completed successfully. The table has been created, okay. Now let's add some kind of dummy values to this particular table. So I will do what? Let me copy it and paste the code here. Okay, so insert into dbo.dummy table. So name, email is active. So values will be something like this. Okay, so let me select and done. So 10 rows affected. Now if I run select star dbo dot dummy table, okay, and if I select it all and run it, you can see that I am able to populate the data here, right? You can see the same data that we inserted is being populated here in our uh, MySQL, in our Microsoft MS SQL server. And this server belongs to where? This server has been initialized. Sorry, don't have to minimize this. I have to minimize this. Okay. So this server is initialized where? This server is initialized on our Amazon RDS. Okay, and I am easily able to interact with my RDS via this particular RDC connection, that is the remote desktop connection. Okay, and how I am able to access this particular remote desktop connection is via my EC2 instance, right? So this is the exact thing that I'm doing, that from my system I have connected not using SSS this time, I have connected using the RDC, that is remote desktop connection. So I have connected via RDC to my EC2 instance, and I am running my commands on the EC2 instance. I even installed this my MS SQL package on this EC2 instance itself. Right, you can see here ec2.database.connect EC2 15 207 19.921, right? And this is the exact IP address of my, this is the public IP address of my EC2 instance, right? You can see right here. And the apsouth1.compute.amazon.com, which is nothing but my endpoint of my, somewhere you will see, maybe in the networking thing, right? You can see right here, okay? The endpoint of my compute, that is my EC2, right? So I am able to connect to my EC2, and via my EC2 I am able to create databases, right? Create new tables, insert data into tables, fetch the data from the tables, and so on. Now, whatever any kind of database operations that I want to perform, I can very, very easily perform on my RDS that I have initialized on the Amazon infrastructure. Okay. So, cool. Alright, guys, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I will be back. All right. All right, guys, I'm back. Okay. So just like I showed you, right? I like we can create the tables and all these things can be done. Okay. So I believe now you guys have understood how we will be able to launch Microsoft SQL Server RDS instance, how I will be able to launch my EC2 instance, and how I will be able to connect to my RDS instance using my EC2 instance. Okay. These things are done. So now what I will do is I will basically try to close this thing, or I can close this connection itself. Okay. I will be closing my remote desktop connection with my EC2 instance for now, because now once we have done this thing, I guess I have all of us have understood these things, learned these things, right? So let me just close this connection. So don't display. Okay. Okay. Right. So the connection now, the connection of my system to the system or to the EC2 has been closed. Okay. If I want to connect it to again, I can very easily use this RDP to connect it to it again. Okay. This is done. Now the very important thing is that how we will be able to clean up the things or delete the resources that basically we have initialized, right? So first of all, I will try to delete the instance, right, which I have initialized. So you can just select the instance that you have initialized, right? Make sure you are not deleting any other instance that you have not initialized. If you are working in a kind of shared ID, right? Maybe if you're using your friend's ID or your maybe even your company's ID, right? Make sure you don't delete any other instance which you are not aware about, right? Because in that particular case, maybe your friend or anyone else may lose his hard work that he has done to set up the things, right? So don't try to delete any other instance apart from the instance that you have created. Okay. So select the instance, right? This will select all the instances. Here you can manually select it, something like this, just like we select photos and everything, right? I don't think that this thing is needed to be taught, right? Here in the actions, right? Sorry, not in the actions, in the instance state, you will see multiple options, right? Stop instance, reboot instance, and terminate or delete instance. Some people just stop the instance and think that they will not be charged, but this is not the case. You may not get charged for running the instance, but you will be charged for whatever volume you have attached to the instance, right? You will be charged for the network thing that you are using for the instance and all those stuff. So if you don't want to be overcharged, right? If tomorrow you feel like that, okay, I want to brush up these things, or I want to explore MS SQL, right? So you can stop it for a while. Okay, if you want that you will need this this whole thing again, so you can click on the stop button or the stop instance button, so that you will not be charged for maybe currently it's afternoon, right? Maybe I feel like I will use it again in tomorrow morning, right? So you will not be charged from this afternoon to tomorrow morning for the processing part, but for the rest of the things you will be charged. So I will not be using it again. I am aware about this fact, right? Even if even if I want it again, I will reinitialize all of the things again, right? I can do it. So I will just click on this terminate and delete instance. So I will click on it. So this, okay, graceful OS shutdown process. Okay, so I can just click on this terminate and delete instance. So you will be seeing here that successfully initiated the termination, and after a few minutes you will see that no instance will be available here. Similarly, for the database, you have to select the database instance that you want to delete. Again, don't try to delete any other database that you are not aware about, right? And go to actions, and here also you will have to click on this delete button, right? Here just try to uncheck these things, like don't uh, uh, keep the backup of the snapshot, don't retain the automated backups. You will have to select this particular thing, that I acknowledge that upon instance deletion, automatic backups and including the system snapshot will be no longer available. So I don't require all those things. So you can click on this particular thing, I acknowledge button, and then you will have to type delete me, and you will see this delete button is now active, and you can click on this delete button. So again, the deletion has been initialized. If I come back here to the instances, I believe Okay, so you can see no matching instance found means the instance has been deleted. Verify it, cross checking it is a great thing, right? So just cross check it again. So the database instance is getting deleted, so let it get deleted, because this is where most of the people uh, spend their money, right? And that too, it is a wastage of your money. You are not even learning things, you are not even doing anything, but you are getting charged for it just for keeping it idle or just for keeping it in a running state. Okay, so every time you watch the video, right, you learn things, even though I don't show you, right? Let me make this very, very clear. I'm a human, I can also make mistakes, I can forget things. Even if I am not telling you to delete the resources after watching the video, right, do delete it. Okay, do delete it, the video, the whatever services you have created, right, just try to delete it after watching the video, so that you don't get overcharged, right? That's the only concept behind it. Cool. So now you can see the database instance has also been successfully deleted. You can refresh it and you will see no resources to display. Means now I will only be charged for the time, right, for which I have recorded the videos, or similarly, if you are watching the videos, right, and if you are following the things along with me, so we will only be charged for the duration uh, till which we have utilized it. Now I will not be even charged a single penny for any of the resource, neither for the EC2 instance nor for my RDS instance. Okay, so I have cleaned up the instance, done and done, right? So I know it is a very, very long video, right? It took a lot of time. Again, installing things, doing all those stuffs, right, also took a lot of time. And understanding the connectivity part, right, initializing the database and all those things took a very, very long time. Not a very long time, I would say, right? If you look at it as not a learning but as infrastructure point of view, so it hardly took 2 hours, right? It hardly took 2 hours. And you can feel like now, if you are a startup, some kind of startup, right, where you require to set up your own infrastructure, and at the back end you are using the Microsoft SQL server, so it will hardly take you 2 hours of time, right, from the scratch to set up all the thing, right? So in the terms of like in the technical terms, I would say it is a very, very short period of time, right? Even though if you feel like that, okay, this video is very, very long, but in the technical terms or in the real world thing, 2 hours is nothing, right? It's nothing. People spend months and years to get their infrastructure if they are using on-prem thing, right? So they spend months and years, even years, the larger organizations. So obviously those kind of infrastructure we will not be able to set up in 2 hours on the cloud also, but we can do it in few days, right, or maybe in a few weeks, for which they spend years, right? So this is the whole power of the cloud, and the cloud computing. Cool. So I hope you guys have understood the concept, why we launched an EC2 instance first, and then we connected our EC2 instance to the MS SQL database instance and all these stuffs. how using RDC, right, I will be able to connect to my MySQL database instance via my EC2, right, and all these things are clear from clear for you guys. Cool. So cool. I have to close this. This is done. All of the things are done. All of the things means we have currently not done the we have not used this cloud formation, right? In the next video I will try to show you how using cloud formation we can initialize the services. Okay, maybe in the next video or maybe in the upcoming videos I will try to show you. I will plan it accordingly, and I will try to show you guys all those things. Cool. So with that said, I will be ending this particular video. I hope you guys learned something new in this video. I will see you in the next one. Till then, keep learning and keep growing. Bye bye.